All right, I'm trying to tap into what you guys are feeling, not in a creepy way, but in a way of like being on the pathway and going through life, having ups and downs, having some wins, some losses, being told that that's just what life is like, and to be okay with it and to be positive and to train your mind to think positive, to use affirmations, all these different things. But those of you that are on my channel probably know that there's something more. You don't necessarily know what it is. You have like this subtle remembering that there's more. So then you start seeking, you start reading different spiritual books, you start, wherever your entry point is, it doesn't really matter. You start to look and you start to apply techniques and things, and you get like this relief, but it also doesn't last. So you try harder, you seek further, you read more books, you go to more seminars, you maybe try plant medicine, you maybe seek therapy. There's this subtle, we don't often like to admit it. And I mean, even before I got into my spiritual work, even when my life was bad, for a while, there's been moments in my life where I was like binge drinking and bringing on a lot of pain into my life. But even in those moments, I remember being like, I'm fine. I feel pretty good. Like I could make the best out of pretty much everything. But it wasn't like, ultimately it was suffering that made me a seeker, but it was more like this inner knowing. And just like this, there's like something inside me that's like, something's wrong, something. So I'm assuming that you guys are feeling that. I think the whole world is feeling that right now. Depending on, I don't want to say like level of awakeness or level of consciousness, because it really doesn't matter. It does matter in terms of what you feel and what you're susceptible to, what energies you can feel and how you operate, but it doesn't matter in terms of who you are, because everybody at their core is divine beyond what you can even imagine. So where you're at isn't a judgment, it's more of a, how much of a yearning do you have to wake up? How serious, maybe that's not even the right word, like what's your earnesty towards knowing the truth? And for whatever reason, mine was freaking high. So I just kept going and going. And a lot of the stuff I did, I wanted to achieve, I wanted to reach liberation, I wanted to remove traumas, I wanted to feel better, I wanted to stop the rat race, I wanted to stop chasing carrots, I wanted to move forward, and I couldn't. And that's what I'm tapping into with you guys, is just trying to relate to how it feels to be stuck, how it feels to think you're making progress and then something happens. Like, what do they say? You can never be a saint in your hometown. That's kind of a deep meaning, but like you think you're like spiritually enlightened, and then you go home and see your family and you're like, oh my God. Not only did you get triggered and go back to like your old self, but you realize that nobody gives a shit, right? Especially your family. They're always going to see you as that 18-year-old punk, or that that they had to do a bunch of shit for they didn't want to do, or whatever, you know what I mean? Well, okay, maybe that's just my family, but yeah, you go home and it's pretty interesting. So and then we get into spiritual ego, and we think because of our knowledge, now I'm a certified healer, I'm a certified whatever, and those things are great and they are pathways, but if you're honest, like it's just not getting you anywhere, right? And the problem is that you can spend 10 years on that. You spend 10 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes. So I'm grateful for my determination to continue to seek the truth, and the ability to know that I've been wrong and throw away and just keep moving forward and shedding layers and just keep moving forward and trying new things. I haven't even told you guys half the stuff. I was even in Scientology for 3 years. I went deep into that. It wasn't my thing, but I learned a lot. Like, my willingness to try to learn to move forward is pretty tremendous. So I'm grateful for that, because it took me a long time to actually get to where all these things that people talk about, like the feelings of bliss, the feelings of freedom, the truth of who we are, just this radiance, like it took me a long time to be able to feel that. And I thought I would feel it from time to time, like when I would, do ayahuasca and you feel it, and then you come out of an ayahuasca ceremony and you feel amazing. But then 6 months pass. Actually what ayahuasca does for a lot of people is it awakens their kundalini. So then the real work begins, because you've got that energy awakened and now it's moving up the spine and hitting all your samskaras. And so I guess what I'm saying is the real spiritual journey requires you to clear out all the traumas so that the energy can rise up the spine. That's really what it is. And if you don't want to think of it in terms of energy and chakras, some people swear by that stuff. Some people think it's woo-woo. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to think of it that way. That's just kind of what happens. That's what the Eastern science has shown, and you can feel it too. But my point is that if you want true progress, what happens is you reach this point where you have to face the false self. And my discovery is that any type of spirituality that does not directly have you removing the false self is spiritual bypassing. And I know that because I did that. 15 years, guys. 15,000 hours of studies, reading, books, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested. And what did I get? I got like a PhD in spirituality, but I didn't get any relief. So maybe you can relate to that. And what happens is we have to turn our awareness onto ourself, onto our lower self. And the reason no one wants to do that is because it's painful. It's not as painful as it seems. We're operating through the ego mind, and the ego mind is pretty freaking intelligent. It's actually very intelligent. And it doesn't want to do anything that threatens its life, literally. You've heard of dying before you die to be alive. That's an ego death. You've heard of ego deaths. People think they've had them, but very few people have. So when we turn to do the real work, what happens is you're faced with yourself, who you think you are, but it's not who you are. And you're learning that you have to kill the part of you that is false. And you're still operating from that part. So that's why so many people don't do this work. People say they're spiritual, they do all these different things, and it's also why people don't get results, is because when it comes down to it, the only thing you have to do is realize the false self. It's actually an illusion. You could say eradicate the ego, drop the false self. It's written in all the text, guys. So nobody wants to do it. And I understand. I didn't want to do it. I tried to do it I even found that out 5-6 years ago, and I thought I was doing it, but it's so insidious that it just pops. It's like, because you can't beat the mind with the mind. That's the biggest thing. Like all these teachers, I won't name names, but anybody that's not confronting this is bypassing. And we go and there's certain doctors out there that teach you how to use the mind to overcome. Like, guys, all you're doing is creating more webs that are going to have to be undone. You're creating more concepts, more bullshit. You're tying up your mental space with more and more and more, and you're using the mind to beat the mind, which is like weaving a web over here to undo this web, which then you need another web to. It's just a mess. And you'll know that when you actually start undoing it all. When you take and face the lower self and start to remove it all, you'll see all that stuff has to come back out. And that's the pathway, man. And I damn near gave up several times. And the reason I'm reaching out to explain this to you guys is that I know your frustrations. I know the idea that nothing works. I can't think of, it's very rare that someone mentions a modality that I haven't at least tried or studied or went very, very deep on. And they're funny because they trick you, because for the first year or so you're like, oh, I found it. And then 5 years later you're like, what the F happened? I'm right back where I was. Now maybe I'm a little more loving. You make gains along the way, and all of these things that happen on your spiritual path are part of it. There's nothing wrong with any of these modalities. But eventually, you have to look in the mirror. And that's the hard part. And when you do that, what you think you are begins to melt away. And that's very challenging. Very challenging. You think you're losing your life, you think you're losing your identity, you think you're losing your personality, and you really are. You're losing life as you know it, you're losing your personality as you know it, you're losing your identity as you know it. And when I tell people this that are newer on the path, they're like, well, why the F would I want to do that? Because that's the source of all your suffering. And it's such a mind fuck. It's like everything is exactly opposite of what you think it is. We're so stuck in the ego mind that we're creating everything. We're creating all the suffering, all ourselves, and it's all because we forgot who we were and who we are. And everybody has this within them. Everybody knows, but nobody wants to face it. Nobody wants to do the work. That's why you can have an enlightened master and thousands of people and maybe one or two wake up, because it takes a massive amount of courage to flip awareness upon itself and face the falseness that is holding you down. Most people just don't want to do it. So for the real seekers, which I'm hoping you're on my channel at some point as this channel grows, that's just a message for you. It's the only thing worth doing is facing the falseness and putting truth as your guide and starting to unravel it. And there's lots of ways to do it. I use the roar technique. That works good. There's whatever you're doing to get rid of trauma. There's a lot of things that don't work. I don't want to start naming modalities, but most of them don't work, guys. Most of them just don't work. And what happens when you do? You start to have the energy starts to rise up. It starts to get through the lower chakras and into the heart. Your heart starts to open. You become more radiant. You become softer, easier. You care a lot less about who you are, what you look like, what people think of you. Life just gets a lot softer, more gentle, more beautiful. And that's just the beginning, because that's just tapping into the fourth chakra just slightly, and it goes all the way up to 7th and even 8th chakra and even beyond that. So this is the evolution of consciousness. This is the path of mankind, and there's no right or wrong. You don't have to do this, but this is what this channel is about, and that's what I've chose to do with my life. So if that's something you're interested in doing at your own pace, you're in the right place. And it takes incredible bravery and a lot of courage. And it's not just like you have to be brave once, you have to be brave over and over and over. But it's so rewarding. And the rewards are real. They're real. You can feel them. You can experience the grace of God, if you will. You can experience this beautiful flow of energy that you just never had before. Everything's okay. You're not worried about what you have to do in the future, what you did in the past. Time begins to collapse in the most beautiful way. You bring all of your presence into the now, all of your attention units, all of your awareness into the now. Imagine you're walking on this pathway, right? And behind you is the past, and in front of you, you're projecting yourself into the future. And each footstep has a certain percentage of your awareness or attention. And you only have 100% to give. Well, most people are walking with 80 or 90% of their, let's say 60% of their attention behind them, and 39% of their attention in front of them. And so they're spread out like their attention is literally like a spider web just all the way on their timeline. Guys, if you bring that all back to the present moment, what happens is true alchemy. You start to drop into what's real, what you're really feeling. Traumas start to rise and come out of you, and that's the pathway. But nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to actually do it. So if you're feeling frustrated, I understand. I spent the majority of my life in frustration, to be honest. even though I was positive and successful and had a lot of great experiences, whatever, none of that stuff means anything. The only thing that I've ever found that's valuable is love, which is the truth. The truth will set you free. It really will. And so find the courage, confront the lower self. If you need help, if you want me to talk about anything specific that you need, as this group grows, you can join our community. Also get the roar technique in the comments below. But as the community grows a little bit more, we'll start to host some live Zooms and things like that. In the meantime, if you have questions, comments, please place them below. And if you like this video, please give me a like and subscribe. Wish you guys a great day.